Pacific was quiet now. The embers of the war were fading, leaving behind the stories of the men who had lived in the gray areas, finding laughter and romance in the shadow of the storm. "Wow," McHale whispered to the stars. "Wow, wow, wow." Author's note: this novelization was created using the fallback model Gemini 2.5. Flash. Image. Preview. Nano Banana. As the requested advanced image generation and multi-turn editing features are currently unavailable in the Canvas environment. I hope you enjoyed this romantic and dramatic reimagining of the classic story. Shadows over Taratupa, a tale of valor and desir. Chapter 1. The humidity of duty. The sun over Taratupa did not merely shine, it pulsated. It was a rhythmic, heavy heat that settled into the pores of every sailor and nurse stationed on the island, a reminder that the Pacific theater of 1943 was as much a battle against nature as it was against the unseen enemy. Captain Wallace Binghamton paced the confines of his office, his shirt already clinging to his back in dark, damp patches. He was a man held together by starch and anxiety, a brittle commander whose nerves were currently being frayed by the most unlikely of military crises. "Garter belts, carpenter," Binghamton barked, slamming a hand onto his mahogany desk. "The supply officer says we are out, and the nurses are in an uproar. Do you realize the strategic importance of morale? If the nurses are unhappy, the surgeons are distracted. If the surgeons are distracted, the war effort crumbles." He came. Lieutenant Elroy Carpenter, his loyal but perpetually confused shadow, straightened his cap. "I'm trying, sir, but the supply lines are choked." Commander McHale says, "Don't mention that name." Binghamton's face turned a shade of crimson that rivaled the tropical sunset. "Quentin McHale and his band of cutthroats on PT-73 are the bane of my existence. While I am here, calculating trajectories and managing logistics, they are out there, acting like pirates." But beneath the captain's bluster was a deeper fear. A message had arrived that morning. Admiral Iron Pants Rafferty was coming for a sneak inspection. Rafferty was a legend of discipline, a man who could spot a loose button from a mile away and a lapse in moral character from 10. Amidst this chaos, the heart of the island beat in the nursing quarters. Lieutenant Evelyn Wilson sat by the window, watching the PT boats cut white scars into the turquoise lagoon. She was a woman of quiet strength and hidden passions, her eyes often wandering toward the silhouette of the 73 boat. She didn't see a crew of misfits. She saw men who lived with a fierce, desperate joy because they knew each day might be their last. Specifically, she saw Quentin McHale. He was the antithesis of the rigid military structure she was sworn to serve. He was broad-shouldered, with a smile that felt like a warm breeze and eyes that held the depth of the ocean. "What a war," Evelyn whispered to herself, adjusting the collar of her uniform. Chapter 2. The Admiral's Shadow and the Captain's Feign. The news of Admiral Rafferty's arrival sent Binghamton into a spiral of hypochondria. His stomach acid, as he claimed, was potent enough to start a jeep. In a desperate bid to avoid the Admiral's wrath, Binghamton conceived a plan born of cowardice. He would fake a terminal illness. "If I am incapacitated, I cannot be held responsible for the state of this base," Binghamton reasoned, clutching a bottle of indigestion pills as if they were holy relics. He summoned McHale. He hated doing it, but the logic was twistedly brilliant. If he appointed McHale as acting base commander, the Admiral would be so horrified by McHale's lack of discipline that he would focus his fury on the commander. Leaving Binghamton to recover in the grace of the hospital, McHale entered the office, the scent of salt and diesel clinging to him. "You look terrible, Captain," McHale said, though there was a twinkle of suspicion in his eyes. "I'm a very sick man, Quentin," Binghamton groaned. "The medics, they don't know what it is. I need you to take command, you and Parker. You're the saltwater skippers I need." Ensign Charles Parker, standing behind McHale, looked as if he'd just been told he was being sent to the moon. "Me, sir? Acting executive officer?" I'll do my best, sir. I'll run a tight ship." As McHale and Parker left to take over the administration, Mikhail caught Evelyn's eye across the compound. For a brief moment, the war vanished. The tension of the upcoming inspection, the absurdity of Binghamton's act, and the heat of the day all faded. "Careful, Commander," she said softly as they passed. "Power is a heavy burden. Only if you take it seriously, Evelyn," Mikhail replied, his voice dropping an octave. "I'm just keeping the seat warm, but maybe, while I'm in charge, I can find a way to get those gutter belts your girls are crying for." Evelyn laughed, a sound that Mikhail decided was worth more than any medal the Navy could bestow. Chapter 3: The Sultan and the Secret Heart. The arrival of the Sultan of Marami and his 3 daughters changed the atmosphere of Taratupa from a military outpost to a surreal royal court. The Sultan, a man of immense dignity and hidden humor, arrived on the PT-73 after his own plane suffered engine trouble. "Wowie, wow, wow," Parker whispered as the 3 princesses stepped onto the dock. They were visions of elegance, draped in silks that shimmered like fish scales. But for the Sultan, the trip was more than a diplomatic necessity. He was looking for allies. Yes, but he was also a father guarding the hearts of his daughters. Princess Siri, the eldest, found herself fascinated by the bumbling but earnest Ensign Parker. There was something in his clumsy attempts at protocol that spoke of a genuine soul, a rarity in a world of polished diplomats. Mikhail, ever the host, organized a dinner that Binghamton, now miraculously recovering, insisted on overseeing to reclaim his glory. "I want an impression made," Binghamton shouted at the crew. 100% order, but the 73 crew had other ideas. Under the cover of the Sultan's visit, a romance was blooming in the shadows of the palm trees. Parker and Siri met in secret near the lagoon, the air thick with the scent of frangipani. "In my country," Siri said, her voice like music, "a man's worth is not measured by his rank, but by the kindness in his eyes. You, Charles Parker, are a king among men." Parker felt 10 feet tall. I just try to do what's right, Your Highness, even if I usually end up doing it backward." Meanwhile, Mikhail and Evelyn shared a quiet moment on the bridge of the 73. The ship swayed gently in the tide. "Do you ever think about after?" Evelyn asked, leaning against the rail. "After the guns go quiet?" Mikhail looked out toward the horizon. "Every day, I see a little house by the sea. No uniforms, no captains. Just the sound of the waves and someone to share it with." He reached out, his hand covering hers. The touch was electric, a silent vow amidst the uncertainty of the Pacific. Chapter 4: The Laughing Gas and the Fitness Board. The comedy of errors reached its peak when Binghamton, fueled by a renewed hatred for the 73 crew, decided to convene a fitness board to have Parker drummed out of the Navy. He was convinced that the ensign was the weak link he could use to shatter Mikhail's leadership. The crew, desperate to save their friend, turned to a peculiar weapon: nitrous oxide laughing gas stolen from the dental clinic. "If we can get Binghamton in a good mood," Mikhail explained, "he'll sign anything, even a cancellation of the hearing." Amkortan, ECA. The plan was executed with military precision. They rigged a tank to the captain's office window, pumping the sweet, numbing gas into the room just as the fitness board was set to begin. The result was a scene of pure madness. Binghamton, usually a pillar of repressed rage, began to giggle. Then he began to roar with laughter. He embraced Parker, calling him Chucky Wucky and the finest officer in the fleet. "I love you all," Binghamton shouted, leaning out the window and waving at the confused sailors below. "Give everyone a promotion. Give the garter belts to the seagulls." Evelyn, watching from the clinic, shook her head in amusement. She saw Mikhail standing by the pump, his face lit with a mischievous grin. He was a man who fought the darkness of war with the light of laughter. But the laughter died when Admiral Shoemaker arrived unexpectedly. Just then, a real air raid siren wailed. The Japanese were nearby. The base went into a frenzy. There, Parker, still partially blindfolded and fueled by the remnants of the gas and a desperate need to prove himself, stumbled to a deck gun. In a feat that defied all logic and physics, he fired a single-handed burst into the sky. A Japanese bomber, trailing smoke, plummeted